Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum everyone. I hope you're all doing fine. Today we are here for English Comprehension and Composition lecture number 4. As you all know, we have been talking about English comprehension skills. We talked about how to strengthen your reading comprehension skills so that you can easily read longer passages, understand them, and answer the questions that are attached to them. And in the previous 2 lectures, we did reading comprehension exercises in detail using all the skills that we talked about in the first lecture. Today again, we are going to do some more reading comprehension exercises, and in the end, we are going to revise all the reading skills that we have done before. So let's start. Here we have another passage, comprehension passage, that you have to read and answer the questions that are attached to it. This is not a very long passage. It has only 6 questions with it, which will be helping you use all the language comprehension skills that you have acquired till now. Let's look at the questions and one by one check if your answers are correct. Question number 1 is, how did people first consume chocolate? Option A, as a sweet drink. Option B, as a bitter drink. Option C, as a chocolate bar. Option D, in cakes and pastries. And option E, as a white chocolate bar. Now let's go back to the passage and try to find the answer to this question. Keep your options in mind. In the first paragraph tells us about how chocolate started and who discovered its beans, and then how it was changed into various different forms of chocolate. In the second paragraph, we see Christopher Columbus was probably the first to take cocoa beans from the New World to Europe in around 1502. But the history of chocolate goes back at least 4,000 years. The Aztecs who lived in America thought that their bitter cocoa drink was a divine gift from heaven. In fact, the scientist Carolus Linnaeus named the plant Theobroma, which means food of the gods. Let's look at the passage and find the answer to question number 1. Our question was, how did people consume chocolate in history or in the olden days for the first time? What was the form of chocolate that was consumed by people when chocolate started a long time ago? So you'll be finding the answer to this question in paragraph 1. We see that while tracing the history of chocolate, we are told that the Aztecs who lived in America thought that their bitter cocoa drink was a divine gift from heaven. Now, in the olden times, the first time people ever used chocolate or cocoa beans was when they used it as a bitter cocoa drink, because they didn't know how to change it into chocolate bar or any other form of chocolate that we consume these days. So they used it as a bitter cocoa drink. So going back to our question number 1, we see that option number B would be correct, as a bitter drink. Because it was just cocoa beans, they didn't know how to change them into various other forms of chocolate that could be consumed, that we eat these days. आजकल तो हम लोग चॉकलेट बार्स खाते हैं, चॉकलेट के बीन्स से चॉकलेट ड्रिंक्स बनते हैं that are both hot and cold, और चॉकलेट की बहुत सारी फॉर्म्स हैं. हम चॉकलेट को अपने केक और बिस्किट और पेस्ट्रीज बनाने के लिए इस्तेमाल करते हैं. But in those times, all these forms were not yet discovered or were not yet made. So in the beginning, people just ate or used chocolate as a bitter drink. So option B here would be correct. Moving on to question number 2. Why did Linnaeus name the plant Theobroma? Option A, because he believed in it to be a gift from heaven. Because he believed it to be food of the gods, because he thought chocolate to be toxic, because chocolate was so rare. E is both B and C. Now let's go back to our paragraph number 1 and find the answer to this question. Now we see that we have some information about our question number 2 here, that the Aztecs who lived in America thought that their bitter cocoa drink was a divine gift from heaven. Now, Aztecs believed that the cocoa drink or chocolate was a divine gift from heaven. In fact, the scientist Carolus Linus named the plant Theobroma, which means food of the gods. Now, we have to see why Carolus Linus, that is the name of the scientist who named the plant, picked this particular name, because the people believed that it was a gift from heaven, and the scientist named it food of the gods. So your option number B would be correct here, because what we need is that why Linus named the plant Theobroma. We don't want why people believed in chocolate being the gift from heaven, because that's totally different, because he believed it to be food of the gods. So option B would be correct. Moving on to question number 3. Who was Montezuma? He was an explorer from Mexico. He was the emperor of Mexico. He was an explorer from Spain. He was the king of Spain, and he was a baker in Spain. Let's go back to our passage and try to find the answer to this question. Now, the answer to this question could be traced in paragraph number 2. The Spanish explorer Hernando Cortes went to America in 1519. He visited the Mexican emperor Montezuma. This is the answer to your question. He was a Mexican emperor. He was the king of Mexico, or emperor of Mexico. Let's see if we have the option. He was an explorer from Mexico. No, he was the emperor of Mexico. Option B here again is correct. Question number 3, option B. Question number 4. Who made the first powdered chocolate? Option A, Cortes. B, Linnaeus. C, Columbus. D, Van Houten. And E, King Charles. Let's get back to the passage and find the answer to this question. The answer lies in paragraph number 3. Later, people started using chocolate in pastries like pies and cakes. In 1828, Dutch chocolate makers started using a new process for removing the fat from cocoa beans and getting to the center of the cocoa bean. The Dutch chocolate maker Conrad J. van Houten made a machine that pressed the fat from the bean. The resulting powder mixed better with water than cocoa did. Now, some call Van Houten's chocolate Dutch chocolate. Now, we were asked who made the first powdered chocolate, and we see here that Conrad J. van Houten made a machine that pressed the fat from the bean and changed it into a powdered form. So this is going to be our answer to question number 4. Option D, Van Houten was the first person who made the powdered chocolate. Question number 5. Which people eat the most chocolate per person? The Dutch, the Swiss, the English, the Mexicans, the Brazilians. Now let's go back to the passage and see who falls in this category, who eat most chocolate in the world. Okay, the answer to this question lies in paragraph number 5 here. Today, 2 countries, Brazil and Ivory Coast, account for almost half the world's chocolate. The United States imports most of the chocolate in the world, but the Swiss eat the most chocolate per person. Here we are. This is the answer to your question. We were asked who eats most chocolate per person. So we find out the answer that the Swiss people, that is people who belong to Switzerland, eat the most chocolate per person. So let's go and see which option would be correct. This is option B. Which people eat the most chocolate per person? The Swiss, the people who belong to Switzerland. Question number 6, that is the last question. If something is toxic, it is. You might already know what toxic means, but let's see. It's right here. Chocolate is toxic to some animals. An ingredient in chocolate is poisonous to dogs, cats, parrots, small rodents, and some livestock. Alright, now toxic, to some animals. Now you have to use your skill of guessing meaning in context here. When you see the word toxic here is highlighted, that is in bold type, you will look at the surrounding language and see whether we find the answer or some related word or not. When they say that chocolate is toxic to animals, an ingredient in chocolate is poisonous to dogs, cats and other animals, that means toxic and poisonous are synonymous. They have the similar meaning. So the answer would be poisonous. If something is toxic, it is poisonous. And the other options were disgusting, emotional, popular, harmless. They don't relate. So we are done with the first activity of lecture number 4. I hope most of your questions were correct, and if they were not, go back to the passage, try to find look at the surrounding language and try to find the reasons why your question or answer was wrong. Here is activity number 2 for lecture number 4. This activity has been taken from EnglishForEveryone.org. I told you about this website before. This is a very enriched reading comprehension website. You'll find many good passages divided into 3 categories, that is basic, intermediate and advanced levels. So you can go for advanced level or intermediate level exercises, even basic if you like. In advanced level exercises, they've been divided into 2 or more categories, and that is informational passages and the dialogue based passages. So they have quite a variety of different passages. इनमें से आप अपने liking के हिसाब से passage choose करके और उसकी exercises कर सकते हैं. वेबसाइट के ऊपर passage के साथ questions हैं और उन questions के answers भी आपको दिए होते हैं. लेकिन it's better that you do your exercise first and then go over and check the answers. That would help you understand how much you have understood till now about reading comprehension. So let's go over to this exercise. This is titled Houses Around the World. You have to read the passage and then answer the questions about the passage below. You will be given 15 minutes because the passage is slightly long. So start reading the passage, take your time and then answer the questions, and then we'll come back and see how many of you got correct. Now I hope you have read the passage and done the questions that were attached in the end. Let's read the questions and try to find out the answers so that we can see how many of your answers were correct and how many wrong and why they were wrong. As I told you before, the passage is about houses around the world. There are many different varieties of kinds of houses that we live in. We have been living in since a very long time. How people build their houses, that's what the passage is about. And all different kinds of tribes and people who live around the world, how they make or decorate their houses, that's what the passage is about. So let's look at question number 1. How are the islands and the houses of the Euros tribe the same? Option A is they are both made by machines. They are both made of reeds. Option C, they are both made of soil. They are both built on land, and they are both very modern. Answer to question number 1 is to be located in paragraph number 3. Let's go over and see which one is paragraph number 3 and find the answer here. People who belong to the Euros tribe of Lake Titicaca, Peru, build their houses of reeds. right? Not only that, they also live on islands that are made of reeds. Their boats are made of reeds too. About 2,000 people live on these man-made islands. They started to build their own islands about 500 years ago. And the question was, how are the islands and the houses of the Euros tribe the same? So answer would be option B, as they both are made of reeds. Their islands and houses both are made of reeds. The houses that are built on the islands both are made of reeds. So option B would be correct. Question number 2, why did people live in tree houses? Option A, so they could see far. B, so they could stay cool. C, so they could stay safe. D, all of the above. Or E, none of the above. Let's see where we can find the answer. It is in paragraph number 6. This is the paragraph where we'll be finding the answer to this question. In Mindanao in the Philippines, some people still live in tree houses. The tree houses are made of bamboo with grass roofs. The houses are good lookouts for snakes and wild animals. The air is cool and the houses stay dry. Now, most people use these tree houses as meeting places. Now, why were the tree houses good? The question was, why did people live in tree houses? And we understand that these houses were a good lookouts for snakes and wild animals, and the air was cool and the houses also stayed dry. Let's see if we have the options. So they could see far, so they could stay cool, so they could stay safe. Now, when we say that tree houses were good lookouts for snakes and wild animals, lookout is a place from where you can see far and check if there is any danger or not. And this option is also there in our question. And the air was cool and the houses stayed dry. Let's see if all of them are there. They could see far, they could stay cool, and they could stay safe. When they could look out for any wild animals and snakes, that means they wanted to stay safe by living in houses made of trees. So all of the above would be correct. Option D would be correct, as our option A, B and C all fulfill the requirements of the answer. So question number 2 has option D as its answer. Moving on to question number 3, which groups have cloth houses? Now this also we have to go back to the passage and find. Let's quickly read through the options so that we know what we are looking for. The Utter and the Euros people. Option B, the Dayak and the Greek people. The C, Mongolians and American Indians. D, Andalusians and the Dayak people. And E, the Greek and the Malaysian people. Now let's see where we would find the answer to this question. It is in paragraph number 9 and 10. We have to see which one is paragraph number 9 and 10. This is paragraph number 9 and this is 10. So let's read through both of them and see what is the answer. In the Gobi Desert in Mongolia, some nomadic people live in homes called gels. These homes are made of cloth. Now we see that Mongolian people live in houses made of cloth, and this is the description. Some American Indians live in teepees. I hope you have heard about teepee. Teepee is a triangular shape, cone shaped house that American Indians or Red Indians lived in. ये टाइप का घर आपने अक्सर टीवी पे देखा होगा, मूवीज में देखा होगा. एक कोन की शक्ल का घर होता है, कपड़े का बना हुआ, जिसके एक साइड पे छोटा सा दरवाजा होता है जिसमें रेड इंडियंस, अमेरिकन इंडियंस रहते हैं. So of course that also is made of cloth. So we gather by these two paragraphs that Mongolian and American Indians lived in houses made of cloth. Now the information that is not relevant to the question, there is no need to read through that again. You just find the answer and come back to the question. So option C would be correct, Mongolians and American Indians. Question number 4. Where do houses have outdoor rooms? Now this is quite tricky, that a house is built separately but it has an outdoor room, and we'll see who lived in such houses. Let's look at the options. In Greece, in Malaysia, in Indonesia, in the Philippines, and option E is in the Gobi Desert. And we will find the answer to this question in paragraph number 11. Paragraph number 11 is this one. The traditional houses of Chitos, Greece are made of stone. They have arched doorways and indoor courtyards. They have outdoor dining rooms which are decorated with tile and rock. Now we get to know that the houses of Chitos, Greece are made of stone and they have outdoor dining rooms. So let's go back to the question and answer the question, that is option A. Question number 4 has option A as its answer. Question number 5. Why are Dayak houses decorated with pictures of snakes? And we go back to the passage and find the answer to this question in paragraph number 12. Dayak people of Indonesia build some of their houses on stilts. Stilts are long poles higher than the ground on which the houses are made, several feet above the ground. The frame of the house is made of iron. The walls are made of tree bark. The floors are made of wooden planks which are placed side by side. The houses are decorated with pictures of water snakes and rhinoceros birds. These animals are part of the people's story of creation or how the world was made. So why do these people decorate the walls of their houses with pictures of water snakes and rhinoceros birds? Because they are part of people's story of creation. So let's go back and see whether we have the option there or not. The Dayak people are afraid of snakes. The snake pictures scare away other animals. The snakes are part of the Dayak creation story. So this option is correct. Option C is correct for question number 5. Okay, now we move on to our vocabulary part. Let's look at question number 1. Nomads are people who, you might have heard about nomads. These are people who move from one place to the other with all their belongings and family and everything in search of food and water. These people mostly live in deserts and they keep on traveling. These are traveling people. They don't stay in one place for a long period of time. As soon as the weather changes or the water and other resources get lesser, they just move. So let's find the word where it is in the passage and see if there is any surrounding information. Since the people are nomads, they move often. So nomads move often. They take their animals to new places in order to find food, as I just told you. So let's see if there is an option similar to this. Live on small farms, option A. Move from place to place, option B. C. Build their homes of stone, live in underground houses and build their homes on the water. So obviously option B here is correct. They move from place to place. Question number 2 in the vocabulary part. Traditional houses are houses that have been built. Traditional, something traditional that has been as it is since a very long time. ट्रेडिशनल जो चीज़ होती है वो बदलती नहीं है, वो वैसी ही रहती है बहुत टाइम से, चाहे वो घर हो, चाहे वो आपकी लोगों से मिलने का तरीका हो या आपकी रवायात हो या आपकी आदतें हो. When they are traditional, that means they haven't changed a lot. And let's see if we have the option here. To be easy to move, of clay, straw and soil. See, the same way for a long time. This relates closely with the dining rooms outdoors or with decorations of tile and rock. Now let's see where we find the word traditional in the passage and look at the surrounding language. The modern houses in Sanas are made to look like the older traditional houses. Older traditional houses, but they are made of concrete instead of bricks. Now, we as humans know that we live in houses made of bricks in the modern times. So the traditional old houses were made of bricks, and traditional means old, the thing that has not been changed for a long time, the same way for a long time. Option C is correct. Question number 3. What is another word for soil? Soil is मट्टी को कहते हैं, ज़मीन पे जो खाद और चीज़ मिक्स करके जो लेयर डाली जाती है पौधों को उगाने के लिए, उससे भी सॉइल कहा जाता है. सो देयर इज अनदर वर्ड फॉर इट. लेट्स गो बैक टू द पैसेज एंड सी वेयर द वर्ड इज. Fujian, China has many townhouses that are made of hard packed soil, and the dirt becomes as strong as brick when it is packed hard. So what is hard packed? Soil. And then they have used another word for soil, that is dirt, and I guess we have this in our options. The dirt, option B here is correct. Question number 4. When something is decorated, it is option A, made larger, option B, made stronger, option C, made to look more beautiful, option D, made to look more frightening, option E, none of the above. Now decorated, you all know, is very easy. It's just to follow the skills format that I've given you. Let's look at where the word decorated is. It's right here. They have outdoor dining rooms which are decorated with tile and rock. Of course, you easily understand that this means they are ornamented and made to look more beautiful. So they have given the meaning. So it is the example clue that we did in our clues part, that is the reading comprehension skills, guessing meaning in context. So decorated is made to look more beautiful, option C. Question number 5. Creation is the process of what is creation? What do you understand by creation? Making something, moving something, living in something, decorating something, or holding something up. Let's see where creation is used. These animals are part of the people's story of creation, or how the world was made, Of course, making something. Option A here would be correct. When you create something, you make something. कुछ create करना, कुछ बनाना होता है. Creation, जो चीज़ बनाई गई हो. So option A would be making something. Now we are through with activity number 2 for lecture number 4, and I hope you got most of the questions correct. As we move on to other more activities, it should be your self-evaluation. You should understand that where you lag behind, you go back to that particular skill, read it again and try to improve it. Sometimes students have problems with the guessing meaning in context, and that's why I told you that when you find a word that is slightly less familiar to you, that you don't understand, that you don't know beforehand, you go back to the passage, read the surrounding language, read that word, the sentence in which it is used again and again, and you understand what it means. Okay, now here is another activity for you. This is activity number 3 for lecture number 4. United States Postal Service is the title of your comprehension passage. Read this passage and answer the questions that are attached to it. We are going to go over to the questions one by one, read the questions, come back to the passage and find the answers. Let's go over to question number 1. What is another name for the United States Post Office? You will be finding the answer to this question in paragraph number 1. The United States Postal Service, also known as USPS, the post office, informally as the PO or the US Mail. So all these are other names for United States Postal Service, and let's see whether we have any one of these options in the answers. The PO, the USA Mail, the Ministry of Mail, the Mail Department, the USA Postal Department. So informally it is called the PO, the post office. So option A here would be correct. Now we cannot say it is USA Mail because it's clearly written in the passage that it is the US Mail. US Mail, USA Mail, US Mail will be different. You have to see that the option is very closely connected to what the requirement of the answer is. So option A here would be correct. Question number 2. How much did Benjamin Franklin earn as Postmaster General? We have $100 per year, $500 per year, $1,000 per year, $14,000 per year or $40,000 per year? इस सवाल का जवाब आपको मिलेगा पैराग्राफ नंबर 2 में. Paragraph number 2 को पढ़े. The postal service has certainly grown and changed since 1775 when the first Postmaster General Benjamin Franklin was named to head the Post Office Department, the forerunner of the current USPS. At that time, members of the Second Continental Congress agreed that the Postmaster General headquarters or most important offices would be stationed in Philadelphia and that the postmaster would be paid $1,000 a year for his or her service. Right, so we have the option of $1,000 per year, so option C here is going to be your right answer. Question number 3. What technological innovation did the post office use during World War II? Telegraph lines, surplus airplanes, mail on microfilm, computer-originated mail, or multi-line optical readers. And you will find the answer to this question in paragraph number 5, and it's line number 3. This is paragraph number 5. You will find the answer to this question in paragraph number 5 of the passage. The post office has used alternate methods of transmission during its history. It owned and operated the first telegraph lines from 1884 to 1887 when the lines were privatized. It utilized V-mail, Victory mail during World War II when US military mail was put on microfilm in the United States. Now let's see if we have these V-mail and telegraph lines and microfilm in our options or not, and then find the answer. Telegraph lines, surplus airplanes, mail on microfilm, but we are asked what technological innovation did the post office use during World War II. So technological innovation would be the mail was put on microfilm. Microfilm would be the technological innovation that would be used in order to save space on military transport. During the 1980s, electronic computer-generated mail called ECOM was used for some bulk mailing. Computer-generated mail was printed near its destination and bore a blue ECOM logo on its special envelopes. Now we see that alternate methods are different and any technological innovation was different. So the mail was totally put on microfilm in the United States. This was the technological innovation that was used. So your option number C would be correct here. Question number 4. When was the post office removed from the executive cabinet? You will find the answer to this question in paragraph number 6. In 1970, the Postal Reorganization Act signed by President Richard Nixon replaced the Post Office Department, a cabinet-level department, with the independent U.S. Postal Service Department. So it was in 1970. Let's see if we have the option here. Yes, it's right here, option D. So question number 4, the correct answer is option D. Question number 5, what acronym was used for the system of transporting mail by rail? And the answer to this question lies in paragraph number 3. Let's go back and find the answer. As the country grew westward, it became necessary for the railroad system to carry the mail. The Rail Mail Service, RMS, this was the acronym used for the system of sending mail with the help of railway in America. So RMS is the answer. Let's see if we have the option. Yes, we do. It's question number 5, option A, that is correct. RMS, Rail Mail Service. Now we move on to the vocabulary questions. Question number 1, the best synonym for headquarters is employer, postmaster, main office, mainstream, or central hub. Now you must already know what headquarters means, but let's go back and see where the word headquarters is situated in the passage and see whether the language around it gives us some idea or not. At that time, members of the Second Continental Congress agreed that the Postmaster General headquarters or most important offices would be stationed in Philadelphia and that the postmaster would be paid. We already know that. So headquarters, I told you in the context clues that sometimes the meaning of an unfamiliar or difficult word is enclosed in commas. So commas के साथ करके middle में लिखा हुआ होता है right after the word. So it's not difficult for you to see where the meaning is situated. So headquarters, the meaning of headquarters is right there, most important offices. And let's see whether we have the option in the answers or not. Option A was employer, option B postmaster, C main office. So here we are. This is the answer to your question, option C, question number 1 in vocabulary. Question number 2 in vocabulary, when you sort items, you collect them, unify them, arrange them, organize them. Option E, both C and D. Let's see where the word sort is situated and see if we get the meaning. They sorted about 600 pieces of mail per hour. All the mail had to be sorted before the train reached the first stop, since some of the mail was destined for that first stop on the route. Yes, we get the meaning of the word in a very general way because the word is already there in our general knowledge, in our previous knowledge. We just gather meaning from there and understand that sorted means organized and arrange. So option C and D would be correct, and we already have another option that combines both of them. Both C and D are correct. Option E. Question number 3 in vocabulary, which is the best synonym for surplus? Surplus is a slightly unfamiliar word, might be for you. Let's see whether we have the options here or not, and then go back to the passage and answer. Try to find the meaning of the word. Superfluous, antiquated, military, damaged, pristine. Now, surplus is situated right here. In 1918, the post office took over airmail from the US Army. The first airplanes used in US airmail were surplus planes from World War I. Now, surplus basically means, let's read the next line and see if we find the answer. The post office started with only 4 pilots flying these leftover planes. So leftover planes are the surplus planes. Surplus basically is used for things that are extra, that are not being used, that are more than your usual requirement. So it would be option A, superfluous. Superfluous means that is more than the required amount, serving no useful purpose, hence it is unnecessary. जब कोई चीज़ ज़्यादा हो जाती है और वो फालतू होती है, उसे हम कहते हैं surplus. और फालतू का मतलब it's slightly unnecessary because it is not used, it is not required. इस लिस्ट में 2-3 मुश्किल लफ्ज़ हैं. Let's look at them. Antiquated means obsolete or something that is old fashioned. पुरानी ज़माने की चीज़ को हम antiquated कहते हैं. Antique से ये word निकला है, so it's easier for you to understand. Then military, you know what the meaning is. Damaged. Pristine. Pristine means original, something that is unused, very new and haven't been made or seen by anyone before. Question number 4 for vocabulary. The best synonym for streamlined is A, made more durable, B, made more popular, C, made more efficient, and D, made more expensive. And option E combines both A and C are correct. So let's see, streamlined is used in the passage in what context. Here it is. The independent US Postal Service has streamlined its workload and modernized operations. Today's multi-line optical character reader can read the entire address on an envelope, print a barcode on the envelope, and sort the mail at the rate of 9 letters per second. The zip code +4, a 4-digit code added to the end of the existing 5-digit code, has decreased the number of times a piece of mail needs to be handled. Now, streamlined basically is a a word used to say that we are organizing something, we are making it more efficient or better. So let's see what the answer to this question is. It is option C, made more efficient. As we read in the passage where streamlined is used, we are told that the US Postal Service is modernizing its workload, it is organizing it, it has been made more efficient by using computer generated mail system. There are machines that are sorting letters at the rate of 9 letters per second. So that takes, of course, very less time to sort all the mail, and it becomes easier for the people who are around to handle mail and send it to the people who it is intended for easily and more quickly. So the answer to your question number 4 would be made more efficient, option number C. Moving on to our last question for vocabulary. To automate is to... Now, automate is a word taken from the word automatic, and you already know what automatic means, so your previous knowledge helps you understand the meaning or guess the meaning of this particular word. Let's go through the options and see whether we find the answer here or not. Option A is mechanize, option B, making automatic, option C, accomplish by machine, option D, all of the above, or option E, both B and C are correct. Automate is make automatic or accomplish by machine. So our option B and C would be correct, and we have an option that combines both of them. It is both B and C are correct. Option E basically is going to be correct with this question. So we are at the end of our activity number 3. I hope many of your questions were correct. If they were not, you can come back to the passage, read it again, and see why you could not make it, why your answer was wrong, and find the answer in your passage. Here we are at the end of our activity number 3 for lecture number 4. Your reading comprehension exercises are finished. You have done almost more than 6 and 7 exercises, and by now you should be very clear about what skills are important in enhancing reading comprehension. We are at the end of our 4 lectures of reading and comprehension skills. Enhancing reading and comprehension was tackled with or was dealt with in these 4 lectures. We are quickly going to summarize or recapitulate what we have done before regarding reading comprehension. We started off with strengthening your reading comprehension. There were a set of a long list of skills that I gave you to help you understand the passage that you are given properly, and to read it carefully and with a lot of comprehension and understanding. And these are the skills. We'll quickly revise them so that you have a kind of a revision and your previous knowledge is refreshed. Strengthening your reading comprehension included analyze the time and place in which you are reading. This is important. Why? Because you need to have very cooperative physical surroundings. You do not need to have a lot of noise around you when you are reading. You should yourself be very fresh. If you are sleepy and if you are tired and bored, you cannot concentrate on a reading passage, especially when it is more complicated and longer than usual. So you need to have a room where there is very less noise, absolutely no noise at all. If you are reading the passage on the computer, you should have all the facilities available. You should be able to sit in a better posture so that you are not tired easily. And if you're doing the activity in the classroom, the environment in the classroom should be conducive, should be very positive and cooperative, in the sense that there shouldn't be any noise. If you are feeling hot or cold, then you cannot concentrate on your reading passage. This is important, and if you make sure that your physical surroundings are good, your comprehension can be enhanced, it can improve. Then we have rephrase each paragraph in your own words. you can do that by going through the difficult passages. You just mark them up and come back to them again and rephrase them in your own words. Try to make them simpler and break them into pieces so that you are able to understand the difficult parts. Most of the times it happens that the important questions that are there with the passage, some of them are asked from the most difficult parts of the passage. So अगर वो पैराग्राफ आपको मुश्किल लग रहा है तो उसे अपने आसान लफ्ज़ों में अपने दिमाग में करने की कोशिश करें, लिख लें बेशक, और उससे ये होगा कि आपको वो मुश्किल हिस्सा अच्छी तरह से समझ में आएगा और जो क्वेश्चन है उससे रिलेटेड वो आप आसानी से कर सकेंगे. Read aloud sentences or sections that are particularly difficult. As I just said, that you can read them aloud as well. It's not just about rephrasing them. That's a slightly tough part. If you cannot do that, if you don't have time for that, read those sentences or complicated sections aloud. Most of the times comprehension के लिए आपको reading खामोशी से करनी होती है, दिल में करनी होती है, लेकिन अगर आप उसे थोड़ा ऊंचा पढ़ते हैं तो वो आसानी से समझ में आ जाता है, थोड़ा बेहतर समझ में आ जाता है, क्योंकि आप उसको बोलकर सुन रहे होते हैं दोबारा. So when you come in contact with that particular thing twice, तो वो ज़्यादा आसानी से समझ में आता है. Reread difficult or complicated sections. Now you can reread these sections, you can read them again, come back to them, read them again, read that sentence again, underline the difficult parts. That will help you understand the complicated sections easily. The next important skill can be slowing down your reading rate. Some students just quickly run through their reading. They believe that reading quickly would give them a better understanding of the whole passage. And when you are going for understanding the gist of the passage, reading quickly is fine. But when you have to scan through it, go for specific information, you have to read with a slower rate. And if you know that your reading comprehension skill is not as good as it should be, so आपका reading का जो rate है, speed है, वो स्लो होनी चाहिए, ताकि मुश्किल हिस्सों पे आप ज़्यादा टाइम लगाएं और आपको वो चीज़ें अच्छी तरह से समझ में आएं. Then we have turn headings into questions. Sometimes a passage is given where each paragraph is given a heading, so that heading can be changed into a question, and by answering that question you can increase your reading comprehension. Write a brief outline of major points. With the reading, writing is also good. You can have a notepad around with you or a piece of paper on which you can keep making outline of major points. This is specifically good for longer passages, especially literary passages, जहाँ आपको critical appreciation जो है वो उस paragraph की लिखनी है. For example, आपको एक poem दी गई है या एक dialogue लिखा हुआ है और आपको उसको critically analyze करना है, या कोई writing है किसी बहुत बड़े writer की और वो उनकी बड़ी किसी book में से एक छोटा सा piece निकाल के दिया है आपको कि आप इसको पढ़ें और बताएं कि आप इसके बारे में क्या सोचते हैं. सो ऐसी रीडिंग करते हुए आपको पॉइंट्स जो भी उस वक्त माइंड में आ रहे हो साथ साथ लिखते जाना चाहिए, सो दैट इट्स ईजियर फॉर यू टू आंसर द क्वेश्चंस लेटर और फॉर्म अ समरी और व्हाटएवर इज रिक्वायर्ड. हाईलाइट की आइडियाज. This was also important. After reading the questions, you understand quite well what is required of you. What do you want to find? What do you have to find in from the passage? So when you come across any key idea, any important idea, or an idea that is repeated, keep underlining them. Keep a highlighter, or you can just have a pencil or any colored pen, and you can keep underlining them or marking them with something that you understand later. Then we have write notes in the margins. If there are things that are important and they are supposed to be noted down, you can write notes in the margins and you can come back and read them through and answer the questions. Determine whether you lack background knowledge. Sometimes there are very difficult scientific passages that you don't have any background about, so you have to see how much you know about it and how much you need to know. So the difficult sections in the passage are supposed to be dealt with more care. Now We also talked about two important reading skills that is skimming and scanning. We need to revise that as well. Skimming is used to quickly gather the most important information or gist. I told you that skimming is a skill with which you understand the main idea of the passage. Main idea meaning that the whole overall thesis statement of what the passage is about. If you are asked what the passage is about and the passage is of about 10 paragraphs, you have to quickly skim through and answer that question when in the given time. So doing that while skimming through the passage, you are not supposed to focus on individual words or individual pieces of information because they are not important. You just have to read the passage and see के पैराग्राफ पैसेज किस बारे में है, क्या कहने की कोशिश कर रहा है राइटर. इसीलिए ये स्किमिंग का स्किल हम इस्तेमाल करते हैं. ये बहुत जल्दी से आपको पैराग्राफ की जिस्ट या मेन आइडिया के बारे में बता देता है. दूसरा स्किल इसी के साथ था स्कैनिंग. स्कैनिंग इज यूज्ड टू फाइंड अ पर्टिकुलर पीस ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन that is totally different, although the names sound almost the same, but their function, both the skills are totally different. Scanning is when you go back to the passage and try to find the particular information. For example, you are asked about the date of birth of that writer जिसके बारे में पैसेज लिखा हुआ है, और पैसेज में डेट ऑफ बर्थ है, तो आपको वो पैराग्राफ ढूंढना है जिसके अंदर वो डेट ऑफ बर्थ लिखी हुई है, द ईयर ऑफ बर्थ और एनीथिंग दैट यू आर आस्क्ड अबाउट, और वहाँ पे आप वो ईयर ऑफ बर्थ चूज करें और अपने आंसर में लिख दें. सो दिस इज वेयर यू फाइंड पर्टिकुलर पीस ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन. नाउ स्किमिंग और स्कैनिंग की बहुत सी एग्जांपल्स हमारी डेली लाइफ में मिलती हैं. यू स्किम थ्रू अ न्यूज़पेपर, यू स्किम थ्रू a magazine every day to find the particular information कि क्या किस बारे में है और आप जो चीज़ पढ़ना चाहते हैं. And then you read through an article just to get an idea what it is about, not to focus on each and every word and each and every sentence. That is skimming. And when you scan, that means you are standing on a railway station और आप जो उनका ट्रेन का स्केड्यूल है वो देख रहे हैं, और उसमें से जो ट्रेन आपने लेनी है वो उसकी इंफॉर्मेशन आप ढूंढ रहे हैं. So you are looking for a specific piece of information out of that long schedule of the trains that are coming or leaving from that station that day. So scanning is one important skill that we use almost every day in our daily life. And then we also talked about one very important skill, that is vocabulary in context. Most of the times with the readers who are not very experts in reading, who are young, जिनका अभी इतना ज़्यादा reading के साथ बहुत ज़्यादा exposure नहीं हुआ है, when they come across passages for comprehension, they find words that are unfamiliar, that they have not heard before. So every word cannot be just looked up in the dictionary. आप हर lefts के लिए आप dictionary खोल के उसका meaning नहीं ढूंढ सकते. So आपको एक skill सिखाया जाता है कि आप उस वर्ड के इर्द गिर्द की लैंग्वेज को पढ़ें, सेंटेंस को दोबारा पढ़ें, उसके ऊपर नीचे वाले सेंटेंसेस पढ़ें, पैराग्राफ पूरा पढ़ें बार बार, तो आपको कुछ ना कुछ उस वर्ड के बारे में मीनिंग का आइडिया हो जाता है. हमने इसमें बहुत सी एग्जांपल्स भी की थी. अभी जितनी भी हमने पैराग्राफ्स एक्टिविटीज़ में किए हैं, उन सब के अंदर कहीं ना कहीं कोई ऐसा अनफेमिलियर वर्ड था जो आपको ढूंढना पड़ा उसकी वोकैबुलरी के थ्रू, इर्द गिर्द की लैंग्वेज के थ्रू. और इसमें आपको कॉन्टेक्स्ट क्लूज भी बताए थे, सिनोनिम क्लूज होते हैं, कंट्रास्ट क्लूज होते हैं, एग्जाम्पल क्लूज होते हैं और रीस्टेटमेंट के क्लूज होते हैं, जिनमें वर्ड्स हैं जो आपको बताते हैं कि आपको शायद इस लफ्ज़ का मीनिंग इस सेंटेंस में ही या अगले पैराग्राफ में मिल जाए. सो वोकैबुलरी इन कॉन्टेक्स्ट इज़ ऑल्सो इम्पॉर्टेंट बिकॉज आपके क्वेश्चंस में ऐसे क्वेश्चन होते हैं जहां वर्ड के मीनिंग आपको लिखने होते हैं, और अगर आपको समझ में आ रहा है कुछ ब्रीफ सा भी मीनिंग, तो चॉइसेस जो दी होती हैं उनमें से आप आसानी से उस एक को चूज कर सकते हैं. Then we talked about previewing a text. That means gathering as much information about the text as you can before you actually read it. Previewing में दो तीन इंपॉर्टेंट बातें थी. एक तो ये कि आप अगर ऑथर को पहले से जानते हैं, यू हैव रेड समथिंग रिटन बाय दैट पर्टिकुलर ऑथर बिफोर, तो आपको काफ़ी हद तक उनके स्टाइल का अंदाज़ा होता है. दूसरा, यू गो थ्रू द टाइटल और द topic sentences of each paragraph to understand what the passage is about. ये previewing का skill basic idea हासिल करने के लिए होता है. It's not for answering all the questions. This is just one skill that helps you understand what the passage is about. And then reading for main idea. Main idea is important because almost one or two questions in the list of questions that you have at the end are definitely about main idea. And when you try to gather the main idea, that is with the help of going through or skimming through the passage, और उसके वजह से आपको main idea thesis statement जो है वो समझ में आ जाता है. The last one was making inferences and drawing conclusions. Inference मैंने आपको बताया था, it's basically guessing the meaning or guessing what the information might be, although you don't exactly know what it is. And drawing conclusions when you have a particular piece of information और उसके मदद से आप कुछ और conclude करने की कोशिश करते हैं, कुछ और समझने की कोशिश करते हैं. Now we also had some important examples with this one. For example, हमने एक example की थी, murderers are incarcerated more than robbers. So incarcerated का मतलब हमने उससे गेस किया था कि मर्डर्स और रॉबर्स का कंपैरिजन करके कि मर्डर्स जो काम करते हैं, जो क्राइम वो करते हैं, वो ज़्यादा डेंजरस, ज़्यादा वायलेंट होता है एज कम्पेयर टू रॉबर्स. सो रॉबर्स को कम टाइम के लिए जेल होती है मर्डर्स की निस्बत. सो इनकार्सरेटेड का मीनिंग हमने गेस किया था इज इम्प्रिजन्ड, kept imprisoned, kept in captivity. So this is how we go about making inferences and drawing conclusions. This was the revision of all the reading skills that we did before. All the activities that we have done till lecture 4 will be available on your portal. You can take them from there, and it is advisable that you go over to englishforeveryone.org and find the passages that you like and try to do them as much as possible, because this is going to enhance your reading comprehension even more now that you know all the skills and everything. And also this reading comprehension skill will help you in the understanding and studying of other subjects also, other courses that you are taking, it is useful for them also, because you have to read and answer questions in almost every कोर्स. हर कोर्स में आप जो पैसेज या टेक्स्ट या चैप्टर पढ़ते हैं उसके एंड में क्वेश्चन आंसर्स होते हैं. तो ये रीडिंग कॉम्प्रिहेंशन ही होती है, ऑल्दो इट इज़ एट अ वाइडर लेवल, और चैप्टर ज़्यादा बड़े होते हैं, उनको आपको पीसेस में डिवाइड करना है. आप ये सारे स्किल्स उन पे भी अप्लाई कर सकते हैं. इट्स नॉट जस्ट फॉर इंग्लिश लैंग्वेज. सो हियर वी आर एट द एंड ऑफ लेक्चर नंबर 4. दैट इज़ द लास्ट लेक्चर फॉर योर रीडिंग कॉम्प्रिहेंशन exercises, and we'll see you in lecture number 5. Thank you very much.